Amid a pandemic of illness and worry, one man's death creates an overdue national conversation.
George Floyd was not expendable. This is why we're here.
Police tactics, social injustice, ingrained racism, demonstrations call for change.
Justice for change!
And Omaha is part of the national discussion.
We need to defund the police and propose a people-centered budget that does not allocate 40% of Omaha's operating budget to law enforcement.
I think it's important for a professional police department to always improve and advance and listen.
So tonight, we'll do just that, listen, and talk about the issues, the injustice, and the challenges.
Affirmative action is not about giving someone unqualified an opportunity. It's giving someone that is qualified the opportunity.
Equality means treating every young person the same. Equity means making sure that every student individually has the support that they need to be successful.
The whole conversation over the last 6 weeks have been about bringing people along. It's going to feel uncomfortable.
We continue the conversation with the Project Community Town Hall, accomplishments, opportunities, and justice for all.
Omaha, take notice. A change is about to happen.
The charge towards change begins with each of us. Good evening, I'm Julie Cornell. Welcome to Project Community, opportunity, challenges, and accomplishments. We're dedicated to creating a space for important conversations. That's why for the next hour, we'll spend time talking, listening, and taking stock of where we are. With some help from Zoom video conferencing, we've gathered community leaders and advocates from across the community. We thank them all in advance for spending time with us. Well, Mayor Jean Stothert is conducting a coronavirus briefing as we record this, and she could not join us. We hope our conversation will push beyond labels like police, activist, or organizer. We'll talk about positive things happening in our community and the challenges and distrust that we must address, beginning with calls for police reform.
I think it's important for a professional police department to always improve and advance.
In the wake of protests in Omaha and across the country, Omaha's police chief and mayor announced a series of policy updates. OPD is conducting department-wide in-service training. Officers are being recertified on taser use, and members of the department are reviewing the George Floyd case in Minneapolis and the impact of biased policing on the community and law enforcement.
What occurred in Minneapolis was just horrible to even watch. And I don't even view him as a police officer. Okay, what he did was not a police officer. That is somebody who needs to face charges.
The Omaha Police Department has banned knee to neck pins and chokeholds. The department has never trained officers to use pins like the one which killed George Floyd, but police are allowed to use carotid restraint if an officer is under attack. Critics argue exceptions like that foster a lack of full transparency and accountability.
Someone always uses the tactic like, I feared for my life. For some reason, that's just something that comes up instantly. So then we know, what's the definition of fear for my life? Did somebody lunge at me? Is a lunge really going to kill me?
Under OPD policy, officers are expected to intervene if they believe another officer is using excessive force, like the repeated taser deployment on Zachary Bearheels prior to his in-custody death in 2017. OPD has full deployment of body cameras and tasers, and Omaha police use a data tracking system to identify behavioral issues which could result in problem officers. But some critics say that reforms need to be bigger and broader.
I think we've been desensitized by these small incremental changes.
In her budget address, a dozen protesters interrupted Mayor Stothert with calls to reduce police funding. Stothert rejects that. She hired a diversity and inclusion manager and pledged to increase diversity on city boards and commissions.
I want us to be accountable, and I want us to increase in our training. And my goal is to make a very good police department even better.
We start our discussion by asking Omaha Police Chief Todd Schmaderer what it means to him when people say change is needed.
As chief, when I hear change is needed, I think of a couple things. The first thing I think of, what policies and procedures can we change as a law enforcement entities across this country to improve our interactions with the community? And the second piece to that is, I hear the community, they want to feel that law enforcement is actually there to help them. They want to know that. And I think there's some transparency pieces that can go in behind the scenes to help shine some light on that, shine some light on the positive things that we do and how we operate as an entity, because we are pretty closed off. So I really look at this as They want to see and feel that law enforcement is there for them. And we have that same desire as law enforcement. We want the community to know that we're there for them. So I see a lot of common ground on this movement and everything that we're hearing across the country. So it gives me a good feeling moving forward that we can build upon this.
Julissa and Vanessa, you were part of the demonstrations, a couple of months ago in Omaha. Do you feel like the police are there for you?
It definitely depends on the case. So as far as how the police were there in the presence during certain demonstrations, so in the beginning, a lot of it felt like they were there for the city. It did not feel like they were there for us as citizens. It felt like they were there because they were being paid to be there to protect people's property rather than protecting people's lives. But then, for example, during our walk from 72nd to Memorial Park, they were there walking with us. So in that moment, it felt like they were there with us. So it just really depends on the circumstance.
Yes, and the presence definitely counts.
I feel like there's a national narrative when it comes to police relations and an Omaha narrative. Willie Barney, would you address that?
We've had the opportunity to speak to quite a few cities over the last couple of months, and they really do look to Omaha as a good model for police community relations. Not that we have it perfect, but we've been talking to folks from Atlanta to Kansas City, St. Louis, LA, and they're looking at the collaborative relationships that have been developed over the last 10 years and the progress that's been made. So the relationships, the data, the trends point to we have something pretty unique in Omaha. And again, it's not perfect. We have a lot of work yet to do, but other national cities are certainly looking at Omaha, the 360 model, the relationships with the police department, and most importantly, the progress and the outcomes that we've seen the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Marcy Yates with Culture House, thanks for being with us today. Marcy, when we talk about change being needed in police departments, what does that mean to you?
To me, improving relations by actually like being in the community, being present in the community, not just when like violence occur or something like that, then we see cops, we don't really see them down here interacting like that or really trying to, be in the community. Often it's officers that come down here that don't live in the community, or not, in the community like that. They only come down here when they're, when they're called to. So most of the time they come down here already, expecting a certain, certain thing or activity, when they come down here. Also, like Chief was talking about, policies. During these demonstrations, there are demands. So if y'all listening, during these protests and these demonstrations, people are saying their demands. So again, we have our youth group, what youth can do as well too, and you have to listen. So when we have these protesters and these demonstrations, don't show up trying to stop it or trying to make sure nothing, go wrong, but listen to what the demands are and why they're there, because they're talking about policies they want changed and talking about things that they do want changed.
Right. And I feel like during the demonstrations, that's sort of a time to be out there and be vocal and show your signs and march. And then you kind of have to take it to the next step, right? The next step, which Ben Gray, would you say is what we're doing right now?
First of all, we need to continue the progress that has already been made. There are, like with the 360 meetings every Wednesday, and Ricky can talk about that as well as Willie, in terms of every week. We've been doing this now for, I would imagine, about 8 years. So there is, the community has an opportunity to connect with police every Wednesday at Omaha Home for Boys. And in those meetings, we can begin to talk about, or continue to talk about, I should say, the changes that we want to see made. That's where we need to go now, in my judgment, because, again, Julie, as you pointed out earlier, we have police departments around the country that act a certain way, but in this particular city, we have a police department that has, and I can tell you from experience, has advanced from a long place from where they were to where they are now. That's not to say that there's not improvement that is needed, but there is opportunity at every Wednesday at the 360 meetings to address some of the concerns and some of the change, and do it in a civil way.
Chief, how would you say that weekly dialogue at 360 has changed our community?
Tell you what, it's been paramount, I think, because in any relationship, in Omaha police and Omaha community, we both desire to be in a relationship. That's the first step. You won't see that in every city. There's skepticism there in other cities. So we want to be in that relationship. And anytime you're in a relationship that's long term, and that's what we're in, a long term relationship, there's going to be ups and downs. And what 360 has morphed into and has allowed us to do is get in front of some of those mishaps that occur in policing when we interact with our community. And it gives us an opportunity to address those on a weekly basis. Now, sometimes the weekly meetings are addressing simply trends and things that we need to get in front of, but sometimes those weekly meetings turn into a good opportunity for the community to come, air out their differences, and let the police department kind of respond, hear, and move on from there. And that's been successful on a number of different fronts. And I think that's probably the shining piece of 360 every week that doesn't get talked about as much as it should.
Willie Barney, do you feel like that dialogue has changed North Omaha?
You know, I think there's always additional room for progress, but there's no question. I think if you talk to activists, the people that have been active on this for years, they can see the difference that it's made positively. I think when you look at the trends, and I think you'll talk about that later on possibly, but if you look at the trends of reducing gun violence, which was why we formed it in the first place, by providing employment opportunities, getting neighborhoods involved, the faith community involved, working alongside and with the police department as partners. I think if you look at the neighborhood events that Councilman Gray was talking about, from Christmas in the Village to all types of other activities and events, one of the biggest priorities the community has consistently said is we want to have access to the police department. And I think Chief Smarter, Chief Hayes, Chief Warren, all in between, have made themselves very available when things are happening in the community, or even when things aren't happening. It's just an opportunity to come in and engage. So I think it's making a difference, but I think the biggest piece and why we're here is until everybody feels that way, we don't have, our work is not done. And I don't think our work will ever be done. And it's a part of the process of working together, hearing from the young students, hearing from those that are out on doing the demonstrations and protests. We have seen the progress. When we've had the justice summits and we have 200 or 300 people, they identified their top 10 things that they wanted to see done. We can see the progress that's been made on those, but there are more people in the community that want to be a part of the process and have specific things that they want to see done. But you can definitely see that there's been progress.
And Ricky Smith, I would say that all are welcome at 360, right? I mean, there's such a variety of people there.
Absolutely. It's open to the entire community. It's an excellent opportunity for, like has already been shared, for people to get their voices heard. So we can protest, and it does nobody any good to be in a room and if everybody is screaming at each other, if we're not sitting down and actually working towards some solution. So being able to have access to our officers, being able for our community to actually get some resources that are in the room. So it's not just us and we're locking out the community, but we have Dusk Till Dawn, and we have the Boys and Girls Club and other programs that are there that provide services to the community throughout the entire year.
We have folks with us tonight who were children when the Empowerment Network was born, like Jaden Perkins. Jaden, what would you say needs to change now in your view, and how do you facilitate that?
We need to reform race relations in this country. We need to pass laws in Congress so that things are better. People are better off economically. People are better off when it comes to healthcare and a living wage, and just making just big structural change. Because as we've seen through these demonstrations throughout the last couple of months, people are ready for it, and it's long overdue. And I'm glad that Chief Schmatter and some people from the Omaha Police Department are on this call discussing this. I think in other places, I don't think you would see that happening. So it's a start, but I agree we need to go further.
We have representatives from the Police Union and Latino Police Officers Association. First, Tony Condor, from your perspective, how would you say that police are viewed in the community right now?
That I think we do have a lot of support in the community, but unfortunately the voices you hear now, or the loudest voices, are the ones that are making the most, they're doing the protesting and rioting, are the voices that you hear right now. But I will also say, as a Black officer, I worked the street 18 years. a lot of times when you're a Black officer working North Omaha, you get treated almost worse than any other officer because you're Black working in North Omaha. So I will also say that our community, the Black community, I would like to see us, especially when we push and ask for more diverse police department, I would like to see our community to be more supportive of policing. I had my one of my family members try to talk me out of becoming a police officer. 20 years later, I'm now the POA president. Wow. I'm also a police sergeant. But imagine if I had to listen to that family member, I wouldn't be here today. So I just think that our community could do better by not demonizing the police, going to those community events that we talked about.
I want to finish this discussion about police reform, and Vicki Young with the NAACP. Thanks for being with us. We're trying to build something here, and there's still this sort of underlying level of distrust. How do we cope with that? How do we deal with that?
I would think that the crucial thing is to improve communications. I know that in the role that I play here in serving as the president of the NAACP, I've been in this role now for 10 years. And in working with the police department, it was always important to establish that relationship with Chief Schmaderer. And so I know that at any time there is an issue that comes into the office, I have no problem in calling Chief Schmaderer to speak to him in regards to increasing diversity and inclusion within the police department. You know, he has opened up the discussion on that and how we can ensure that those officers, when it's time to be promoted, that they are promoted and that they look like us. They look like people of color.
In a moment, how mental health factors into our discussion of systemic racism. Our Project Community Town Hall continues.